Hello, I'm Skylar Chase, 29, and I once believed that family meant unconditional love. I walked into my sister Piper's wedding reception wearing a navy blue dress, confidence radiating from every step. At the check-in table, I smiled warmly. Skylar Chase. The staff looked confused. Sorry, your name isn't on the list. Shocked, I glanced around until I spotted my mother, Vivian, nearby. Her response shattered me. Did you really think you were invited? Strangers aren't allowed. I smiled calmly. Then I'll live like a stranger. And just like that, I realized this wasn't just a one-time slight. It was the story of my life. Where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you most clearly. Growing up, Piper was only 2 years older than me, but sometimes it felt like decades. We shared a bedroom with butterfly wallpaper in a modest suburban home outside Boston. I idolized her. She taught me how to braid my hair, ride a bike, and stand up to bullies. Piper was my protector, my guide, my best friend. I still have a faded photo of us, ages 6 and 8, gap-toothed smiles, arms wrapped around each other like we'd never let go. Back then, I believed we never would. Everything changed when our father left. I was 8, Piper 10. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, homework spread out, when Dad walked in with a strange expression. "Girls, I need to talk to you." His voice sounded different. Piper immediately grabbed my hand under the table. That was the last time she truly protected me. Dad explained he was moving out, that he and Mom weren't happy anymore. I cried. Piper sat stone-faced as he hugged us goodbye, promising we'd still see him often. Piper pulled away. I didn't understand then how deeply that moment would shape us. Mom changed after that. The warmth drained from our home, replaced by bitterness that seeped into every corner. She began leaning on Piper emotionally, treating her more like a confidant than a daughter. "You're the only one who understands," she'd whisper to Piper while I played alone. "You're so much like me." Apparently, I was too much like my father, impulsive, creative, emotional. The first time I noticed the favoritism was at Piper's 11th birthday. Mom gave her a beautiful necklace. "For my mature little woman," she said. 3 months later, on my 9th birthday, I got socks and school supplies. "We need to be practical now," Mom explained. By middle school, Piper had fully transformed into Mom's ally. When I asked to join their shopping trips, Piper would exchange looks with Mom. "It's just boring grown-up stuff," she'd say, even though she was barely 13. They had inside jokes I wasn't part of, whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Our house had a clear hierarchy. Mom at the top, Piper the chosen one, and me, always the outsider. Report card days made this crystal clear. Piper brought home straight A's and got lavish praise. I brought home B's, with the occasional A in English or art, subjects I loved. "You could do better if you applied yourself like your sister," Mom would say. Never mind that I studied for hours while Piper seemed to absorb everything effortlessly. High school only widened the gap. Piper was class president, homecoming queen, valedictorian, the golden child. I found my place in the photography club and drama, creative outlets where I could express myself without constant comparison. Why can't you be more like Piper? It became the soundtrack of my teenage years. When Piper got into Harvard on a partial scholarship, Mom threw a party. When I got into NYU for photography, Mom asked how we'd afford it. "You should be practical like your sister," she said. "She's studying business, something secure." Funny thing? Piper once dreamed of being a writer, but she chose the path that pleased Mom. I refused to abandon my passion. That decision only deepened the divide. The summer before college, I made one last attempt. I invited Piper for coffee, just us. For a moment, sitting across from her, I saw my childhood sister again, laughing at my jokes, asking about my photography. But then her phone buzzed. "Mom needs me," she said, standing up. She always chose Mom over me. The day I left for NYU felt liberating. Mom gave me a perfunctory hug. Piper, heading back to Harvard, said, "Try not to waste this opportunity." Not "I'll miss you." Not "good luck." I promised myself I wouldn't cry until I got to my dorm room. I kept that promise. then sob for hours. Not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time, I could breathe without the weight of their disappointment. College became my sanctuary. I limited contact to short holiday calls and brief visits. Each return home only confirmed that distance was the right choice. Mom and Piper stayed in their bubble. Occasionally, they gave me glimpses inside during Thanksgiving or Christmas, but they always shut the door again. I stopped trying to squeeze into the shrinking space they offered. Instead, I built a life that celebrated who I truly was. I made friends who valued my creativity, professors who encouraged my vision, clients who respected my photographic eye. The irony? I found success by embracing the very parts of myself my family rejected. New York transformed me. While Piper climbed the expected ladder, Harvard Business School to a top-tier consulting firm, I found myself through a lens. Photography became my voice, my therapy. I started with street photography, capturing authentic emotion between strangers, the kind of connection I craved. During senior year, a classmate asked me to shoot her small wedding. "I love how you capture emotion," she said. And that's when I knew I hadn't just survived. I had started to see. She said that the first wedding led to another, then another. I discovered I had a talent for immortalizing intimate moments, the trembling hands before vows, the secret glances between newlyweds, the unguarded joy that fills a room during celebration. There was a beautiful irony in it all. I made a career out of capturing the love within other families while mine remained painfully fractured. By the time I was 26, Skylar Chase Photography had become a respected name. I ran a cozy studio in Brooklyn, had been featured in several wedding magazines, and charged premium rates. My calendar was booked months in advance. Success became my validation, proof that the path my family once dismissed had meaning and value. Contact with Mom and Piper stayed minimal, obligatory birthday calls and brief Christmas visits that grew shorter every year. I developed rituals to protect my peace, meditation before phone calls home, scheduling something joyful immediately afterward. I built boundaries like fortress walls. Then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, my phone lit up. It was Piper. Not a text. An actual call, the first in years. Ella. She used my childhood nickname, something I hadn't heard since we were teenagers. "Piper? Is everything okay?" I asked, instantly assuming something was wrong. "Everything's wonderful, actually," she said, her voice unexpectedly warm. "I'm engaged." I was stunned. Piper had never mentioned a serious relationship during our sparse exchanges. His name was Ethan Brooks, a fellow consultant. They'd been dating for 2 years, 2 entire years of my sister's life I knew nothing about. "I'd really love for you to be part of this, Ally," she added. "We've grown apart, and that's partly my fault. But this feels like a chance to reconnect." Hope bloomed dangerously in my chest. "I'd like that," I said cautiously. "Actually, I have a favor to ask." Her tone shifted into something familiar, the same voice she used whenever she needed something. "We're having an engagement party next month. Would you photograph it? You're so talented, and it would mean so much to have my sister's touch on our celebration." Warning bells rang, but I silenced them. This felt like an opening, a chance to repair what had been broken. "Of course," I agreed. I spent the next month fantasizing about reconciliation. Maybe Piper's engagement had softened her. Maybe time and distance had given her clarity. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what we'd lost. The party was held at a chic restaurant in Boston. I arrived early to set up, professional, but dressed well enough to blend in as a guest once I was done. Mom arrived with Piper and Ethan. She leaned in to air-kiss my cheek, but didn't make contact. "The photographer's here," she said to no one in particular, as if I were a hired stranger. "Mom, it's Skylar," Piper corrected. But the damage was done. She introduced me to Ethan, a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle, genuine smile. "Piper talks about you all the time," he said. I wondered what version of me he'd heard about. For 3 hours, I photographed the party, watching the celebration unfold through a lens instead of participating in it. Piper showed off her ring. Ethan's parents toasted them. Mom basked in reflected glory. No one invited me to put the camera down. During a lull, I slipped away toward the restroom, but stopped cold when I heard familiar voices just around the corner. Did you see her hair? Mom's voice, slightly slurred with champagne. And that outfit, trying so hard to look professional. Mom, stop, Piper giggled. She's doing us a favor. A favor we're paying for, Mom scoffed. Don't think I haven't seen her rates online. $700 for an engagement party. Highway robbery for someone who couldn't commit to a real career. At least she's useful for something, Piper added. And cheaper than hiring a stranger. I stepped into view, camera heavy around my neck. Not that much cheaper, actually. They froze, champagne flutes midair. Ally, we were just, Piper started. I heard exactly what you were doing, I said, my voice steady even though my heart pounded. Thanks for clarifying my role here. You're being too sensitive. Mom waved a hand dismissively. We were joking. No, you weren't. I unstrapped my camera. I've finished shooting. You'll have your photos by the end of the week. Congratulations, Piper. I was nearly out the door when she caught up to me. Ally, wait. I'm sorry, she said, eyes glistening with tears that never fell. Mom gets like this when she drinks. You know that. I shouldn't have played along. I wanted so badly to believe her. Do you actually want me in your life, Piper? Or just my services? Of course I want you. You're my sister. She grabbed my hands. This wedding is a fresh start for everyone. Things will be different. I promise. We want you involved in everything. The desperation to believe her outweighed my instincts. Okay, I said at last. A fresh start. She hugged me, and for a fleeting moment, I felt 8 years old again, safe in my big sister's arms. You'll see, she whispered. Everything will be different. I wanted that to be true. Piper's engagement lasted 18 months. During that time, she called often but only about wedding planning. She wanted my professional advice on photographers. I'd ask you, she said once, but you should be a guest, not working. She consulted me about videographers, lighting, venues, every conversation lasting only as long as she needed my expertise. And then cut off. Which backdrop photographs better, draped fabric or flower walls? She'd ask. But when I mentioned my recent gallery showing, she'd interrupt. That's great, but I need to decide this before my call with the planner. Still, I clung to her promise. I rearranged client meetings for venue tours. I researched vendors late into the night. I created vision boards with detail and care, work I normally charge thousands for, all under the fragile illusion of sisterly bonding. 6 months into planning, the invitations went out. Friends posted theirs on social media, tagging Piper and Ethan. Mom called to gush about the calligraphy. But mine? It never arrived. Piper. I texted, I haven't received my invitation. I mentioned it during one of our calls, trying to sound casual. Oh, the calligrapher must have missed you somehow. Don't worry about it, you're obviously invited, Piper said, quickly pivoting. Speaking of which, what filter would you recommend for nighttime reception photos? 2 more weeks passed. Still no invitation. During our weekly wine night, my best friend Zara, my rock since college, finally said what I had been too afraid to voice. Something feels off about this whole wedding situation, she said, refilling my glass. You're doing all this work for free, and you're not even sure you're formally invited? She's my sister, I said, weakly defending her. She said it was just an oversight. When was the last time she asked about your life? Your work? Anything that wasn't wedding-related? I said nothing. I couldn't remember. Then came the bridal shower. No formal invitation arrived for that either. Instead, the morning before, Piper texted, Hope you can make it tomorrow. 2 p.m. at the Langham. Bring your camera. I arrived at the luxury hotel with a carefully chosen gift, a silver photo frame engraved with their initials and wedding date, holding a sunset photo I'd taken of Boston Harbor, the location of their first date, according to their engagement website. Mom greeted guests at the door, but only gave me a cool nod. The gift table is over there, she said, pointing. No hug. No, glad you could make it. For 3 hours, I circulated with my camera, taking photos as requested. Piper's friends from Harvard Business School formed a tight circle around her. When I approached with the gift, one of them asked, "Are you the hotel staff?" Before I could respond, Piper looked up. "This is my sister, Skylar," she said flatly. "She's helping with photos today." Helping, not attending. A service provider, not family. Later, when it was time for family photos, Mom began arranging bridesmaids around Piper. I stepped forward, temporarily setting my camera aside. "I thought you'd want me in some family photos," I said. "We hired a professional for the wedding," Mom replied. "Today, we need you behind the camera." Piper wouldn't meet my eyes. "We'll get plenty at the wedding," she murmured. But she made no move to include me. Driving home that night, I called Zara in tears. "You're right," I sobbed. "Something is very wrong." "Have you received any actual wedding information?" she asked. "Date? Time? Location? Anything directly from them?" "It's all on their website," I replied defensively. June 15th. Four Seasons, Boston. Ceremony at 4 p.m. But have they personally told you anything? Confirmed you're part of the family procession? Asked about your +1? I hadn't heard a word. The final confirmation came during a call about rehearsal dinner plans. Piper asked for restaurant recommendations. "We want somewhere upscale but not stuffy for about 40 people. The rehearsal dinner's that big?" I asked, surprised. "Just family and the wedding party," she said casually. "When should I arrive?" I ventured. The pause lasted just long enough to sting. "Oh, we're keeping it super small," she backpedaled. "Just immediate family and the bridal party." "I am immediate family," I said quietly. "You know what I mean, ally," she replied, using that familiar, dismissive tone from childhood, like I wasn't grasping something obvious. "Mom's family, Ethan's family, the people in the ceremony. We'll see you at the wedding, though. Speaking of which, do you think uplighting in blush or champagne photographs better?" I hung up without answering. And finally, I saw the truth. I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. I was being used. A free consultant. A vendor with emotional history. Nothing more. But still, some part of me refused to believe they could be that cruel. Maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe the invitation got lost. Maybe I was overthinking. So, I bought a dress. A gorgeous, elegant navy blue gown that cost more than I should have spent. I had it tailored to fit perfectly. I purchased a meaningful wedding gift, cleared my calendar, and booked a hotel in Boston for the weekend. I had been unofficially uninvited. But I was going anyway. I needed to see it for myself, to fully accept what my heart couldn't. June 15th. The day dawned bright and clear. A picture-perfect wedding day. I woke up in my hotel room in Boston and checked my phone. No texts from Piper. No details. No final instructions like families usually send. Just a hotel promo email and a good luck message from Zara. I got ready slowly. Hair curled. Makeup subtle but perfect. The navy dress complemented my eyes. The woman in the mirror looked confident, composed, someone who belonged at a luxury wedding. I almost believed it. The Four Seasons stood tall against the Boston skyline. I arrived at 3:30 p.m., early enough to find the ceremony space and settle in. Inside, the lobby buzzed with well-dressed guests moving toward the ballroom level. Programs in hand. Excited chatter. At the entrance to the pre-function area, a security guard and two attendants checked names on digital tablets. I joined the line, clutching my small purse like a lifeline. When my turn came, I smiled. "Skylar Chase," I said. "Family of the bride." The attendant scrolled, then frowned. She checked again, then glanced at her colleague. "I'm sorry. I don't see that name," she said gently. "Let me double-check the spelling." "Chase," I said, heat rising to my cheeks as other guests stood behind me. "I'm Piper's sister." The attendants exchanged uncomfortable glances. "One moment, please," the first woman said, stepping aside to make a call. I stood frozen. Guests streamed in. Curious eyes flicked toward me. My humiliation burned, growing heavier by the second. Then I saw her. My mother. Approaching from inside the venue. her face already set in hard, familiar lines. "Skylar, what are you doing here?" she hissed when she reached me. "What do you mean?" "It's Piper's wedding," I said, my voice embarrassingly small. Mom pulled me aside, her manicured fingers digging into my arm. "We discussed this. You're not on the guest list." "We never discussed anything," I said, bewildered. "Piper said you'd understand your role," Mom interrupted briskly. "Did you really think you were invited as a guest? After everything?" "After what?" I asked, louder than I meant to. Nearby guests turned to look. Mom's smile was cold and tight. "Family only, Skylar. Real family. Not a estranged family member who reappears when it's convenient." Her words hit like physical blows. "I'm her sister." "Sisters don't abandon their families for years and then expect royal treatment," she replied. "Piper graciously allowed you to consult on her planning. That should have been enough." "Consult?" "I wasn't consulting, I stopped, the realization crashing down on me. "You never intended to include me. Not as family." "Don't be dramatic," Mom sighed. "We thought you understood the arrangement. You're the vendor, not the guest." "The vendor? Like the florist, the caterer, the hired help." Piper appeared then, not in her gown, but in a silk robe, clearly from her prep suite. Her expression showed more irritation than concern. "What's going on?" she asked. "Mom, the makeup artist needs you back upstairs." "Your sister seems confused about her invitation status," Mom replied. Piper looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in years. I searched her face for any trace of the girl who used to hold my hand under the table when Dad left. There was nothing. "Ally," she said gently, but with the same dismissive undertone as Mom's. "We talked about this. You help with planning, and we appreciate that. But today is for family." "I am family," I whispered. "Are you?" Piper asked. Her head tilted slightly, like she honestly wasn't sure. "You left, Ally. You built an entire life without us. You can't just show up in a pretty dress and expect family privileges when it suits you." Every moment from the past 18 months replayed in my mind. The consultations disguised as bonding, the abrupt phone calls, the missing invitation, the exclusion from photos, the absence of personal conversations. All the signs I ignored because I so badly wanted to believe I still mattered to them. "I see," I said finally, a strange calm settling over the hurt. "Then I'll live like a stranger." "Skylar," Piper started, but I was already pulling a small gift box from my purse and placing it on a nearby table. "Congratulations on your wedding," I said formally. "I wish you and Ethan every happiness." Then I turned and walked away, back straight, eyes forward. Mom called after me, "Stop being so theatrical," but I didn't look back. I made it all the way to my rental car before the tears came, hot and fast, streaming down my carefully done makeup. Safe inside, I called Zara. "They did it," I choked when she answered. "They actually had security turn me away." "Oh, Ally," Zara's voice cracked with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. Just come home, sweetheart. Come back to New York." I started the engine, but I couldn't bring myself to drive. Through the windshield, I watched guests arriving, laughing, smiling, being welcomed. I sat there, invisible, rejected. All my life, I had tried to earn my place in a family that decided long ago I didn't belong. "I can't leave yet," I said, my voice stronger now. "Allie, don't torture yourself," Zara pleaded. "I need to see it," I said. "I need to watch her marry him, to finally let go." I promised I wouldn't cause a scene. Then I wiped my face, fixed my makeup, and returned to the hotel. Not through the main entrance this time. I found a side door that led to the garden, where the ceremony would take place. From behind a large decorative planter, I had a perfect view, while staying hidden. The ceremony was picture perfect. Piper looked radiant in her designer gown. Mom cried camera-ready tears. Ethan looked genuinely in love. I watched it all with strange detachment, like peering through glass at a family I had never belonged to. As they exchanged vows and promised to build a loving home together, I wondered if Piper would pass down the same legacy of exclusion. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the guests erupted in applause. I stayed silent. In that moment, I felt the final thread connecting me to my family quietly snap. And oddly, it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. It felt like freedom. As the guests made their way inside for the reception, I spotted Ethan's parents, warm, genuine people I remembered from the engagement party. They had asked me about my photography with real interest. They had been kind. I wondered, did they know the truth about their new daughter-in-law's family? On impulse, I decided to find out. I waited until most guests were inside, then slipped in through a side service entrance. The cocktail hour was in full swing, champagne flowing, hors d'oeuvres circulating, string quartet playing in the corner. I stayed to the edges, unnoticed despite my elegance. Years of photographing weddings had taught me how to blend into the background. My mind raced. Part of me wanted to leave and protect the little dignity I had left. Another part craved answers, confrontation, recognition. But neither would bring healing. Then I saw them, Ethan's parents, near the bar, chatting with another couple. On instinct, I approached, summoning a calm, professional smile. "Mrs. Brooks," I said quietly when there was a pause in the conversation. She turned, a flicker of confusion crossing her face before recognition settled in. "You're Piper's sister, the photographer, right? Skylar?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied, noting how I'd been introduced not as sister, but as photographer. "Your work is lovely," she said genuinely. "Piper showed us the engagement photos. You have quite a talent." "Thank you," I said, then hesitated before continuing carefully. "Actually, I'm not working today. I'm here as family." Mrs. Brooks's brow furrowed slightly. "Oh, I thought, well, Piper mentioned you preferred helping with the creative aspects instead of attending as a guest. Something about you feeling more comfortable behind the camera." The lie landed harder than any previous exclusion. Piper hadn't just shut me out. She had rewritten the story to make it seem like my choice. "That's not exactly accurate," I said quietly. "But it's her wedding day. She can tell her story however she wants." Mr. Brooks joined us then, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "Everything all right, dear?" he asked his wife as he passed her a glass. "Perfectly fine," she replied. "Just chatting with Piper's sister." The photographer," he said warmly. "Piper speaks very highly of your work. Though, she did mention you had a prior commitment and wouldn't be able to attend today." Another lie. I'd cleared my schedule months ago for this weekend. "Plans change," I said simply. "If you'll excuse me, I should find my seat." As I turned to go, Mrs. Brooks lightly touched my arm. "Dear, the family is seated at the front table, just over there," she said, pointing. "I believe Ethan reserved spots for all immediate family." I followed her gesture toward the head table. It was beautifully decorated, place cards perfectly arranged. I saw my mother's name, Ethan's parents, the maid of honor, but no card for Skylar Chase. "Thank you," I said softly, choosing not to correct her assumption. "Enjoy the reception." I weaved through the crowd and approached the head table from behind, needing to see it for myself. No seat, no card, no space. I wasn't just uninvited. I had been deliberately erased. And strangely, it didn't break me. Instead, it clarified everything. This wasn't about one wedding. It was about a lifetime of being treated like I didn't belong. For years, I had believed that if I succeeded enough, proved myself enough, bent myself enough, I'd finally earn a place in their world. But the truth was now painfully clear. No amount of success would have changed anything. The problem was never me. It was their inability or unwillingness to see me as someone outside of the roles they'd assigned. Too much like Dad, too emotional, too distant, too different. I stood there as a server approached, offering champagne. I took a glass, found an empty table in the corner, and sat alone, no longer out of rejection, but by choice. I considered my options. I could leave, drive back to New York, and begin mourning the family I never really had. I could make a scene, demand recognition, force the truth into the light. But that would only confirm what they likely whispered about me. dramatic, unstable, desperate. Or I could stay. Not to cause damage, but to reclaim space. To speak truthfully, on my terms, with dignity. The reception unfolded as expected. First dances. Toasts. Cake cutting. I watched as Piper danced with our mother, filling in for the father who had left us both. I remembered how his departure had cemented my role as outsider. When Piper looked happiest, it was with Ethan. Maybe because he was the only person in that room she had chosen, rather than inherited. During the toasts, Mom stood and raised her glass. I've always known Piper would find someone worthy of her brilliance and beauty, she said tearfully. To witness my only child marry her perfect match is more than I could have ever asked for. Her only child. There it was. The final erasure. Complete. As dinner wrapped up, I noticed the open microphone near the bandstand. Guests were invited to share impromptu wishes for the couple. An idea formed, not from bitterness, but from clarity. This wouldn't be an outburst. It would be my moment, my truth. As the music faded into a lull, I rose from my seat, crossed the room, and stepped up to the mic. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. Hello, everyone. I began clearly. Heads turned. At the head table, Piper froze mid-conversation. Mom's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. For those who don't know me, I continued, I'm Skylar Chase, Piper's sister. Gasps rippled through the guests. Confused glances. I saw Ethan's parents exchange puzzled looks, clearly hearing something they hadn't expected. I wasn't planning to speak today. I went on, but I realized I hadn't properly congratulated my sister and her new husband. Piper's face had gone pale. Mom had half risen from her chair, likely planning to intercept me. But I held the mic. Family is complicated, isn't it? I said, scanning the room. We don't choose the people we're born connected to. Sometimes those bonds bring joy, sometimes they bring pain, and sometimes they bring both. I looked directly at Piper. My sister and I have had a complex relationship over the years, one shaped largely by circumstances neither of us created. I let a breath settle in my chest before continuing. What I saw today reminded me that family isn't always about blood. It's about who we choose. The ones who show up. The ones who make space for us, even when it's inconvenient. I lifted my champagne glass. Piper, I truly hope you found that kind of family with Ethan. I hope you build something stronger than what we inherited, something rooted in honesty, respect, and kindness. I stepped down as security began to approach, summoned, no doubt, by my mother. But I didn't run. I walked away slowly, purposefully, back straight, head high. I had come searching for closure, and I'd just given it to myself. But Ethan placed a gentle, restraining hand on her arm, his face troubled as he listened. I won't take up any more of your celebration, I said, voice steady. I just wanted to acknowledge the truth of our family story, because we can't heal what we won't name. I raised my glass one last time. I wish you both nothing but happiness in your marriage. With that, I set down the microphone and turned toward the exit. Back straight, head high. Behind me, I heard the murmurs ripple through the crowd, whispers threading their way through clusters of guests as they began piecing together the implications of my words. But I didn't look back. Not at Piper. Not at my mother. Not at the damage. I had spoken my truth, with dignity, not spite, and now I was leaving on my own terms. Near the gift table, I paused. I reached into my purse and gently placed the small wrapped box down, a handcrafted photo album, filled with pictures of Piper and me as children. Smiling. Innocent. Before the fractures took hold. Inside, I'd written just one line. Remember who we were. Remember we loved each other once. As I reached the exit, a hand touched my shoulder. I turned. It was Ethan. His face held conflict, his expression sincere and unsettled. Skylar, wait, he said softly. I didn't know. Piper told me you two had simply grown apart, that you preferred your life in New York to being around family. I gave a small, tired smile. That's a convenient narrative, I said, without malice. Easier than telling the truth about why she excluded me. I would have wanted you here, he said, as family. And I believed him. Take care of her, Ethan, I said sincerely. She learned this behavior from somewhere. Maybe with your influence, she can unlearn it. Before he could respond, I stepped past him and out into the warm June evening. The air was still, the sky soft with twilight. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. I wasn't trying anymore. Not to earn space. Not to win love. Not to belong somewhere I was never truly welcome. I was almost to my car when I heard my name again, this time shouted. Skylar, wait. I turned. Piper stood about 20 feet away, her wedding dress bunched in her hands to keep it from dragging. Her face was flushed, anger, embarrassment, maybe even shame. How could you? She demanded breathlessly. At my wedding? In front of everyone? How could I speak the truth? I asked, my tone even. After you and Mom lied to me, used me, and had me turned away at the door like a stranger? You humiliated me in front of Ethan's entire family, she snapped, stepping closer. They're all in there wondering what kind of person excludes her own sister. What kind of person does that? I shot back. I didn't humiliate you, Piper. You did that with your choices. She narrowed her eyes. You've always been like this, dramatic. Making everything about you. Turning people against us. Us. I repeated. There hasn't been an us since Dad left, and Mom decided I was the acceptable casualty of that divorce. Piper flinched. That's not what happened. Isn't it? I said. Mom needed someone to blame. Someone to reject, to feel in control after being abandoned. I was convenient. I reminded her of Dad. I paused, then added, quietly but deliberately, and you went along with it, because it secured your spot as the favorite. That's ridiculous, Piper muttered, but her eyes flicked away from mine. Is it? I asked. Tell me, when was the last time you defended me against Mom's criticism? When was the last time you included me in anything without expecting something in return? When was the last time you asked about my life, my work, just to care, not to extract something? She had no answer. You know what the saddest part is? I continued, my voice softening. I would have shown up for you, supported you, celebrated you. No strings, no expectations, because that's what real family does. And what would you know about real family? She challenged. You left. You moved to New York and barely looked back. I left, I said, because staying meant accepting that I was less worthy, less lovable. I needed to get out just to breathe. But I never stopped trying. Every birthday card, every holiday visit, every call, those were my attempts to stay connected. You and Mom, you were the ones who set the terms, not me. So this is all our fault now, she shot back, her voice rising. None of it's yours? I do take responsibility, I said firmly, for allowing myself to be treated like I didn't matter, for believing that if I just tried hard enough, if I just earned enough, maybe then you'd finally see me. Today was the wake-up call I didn't know I still needed. Behind her, I noticed movement. Mom approaching, storm in her expression. Guests drifting from the reception entrance. Among them, Ethan and his parents, faces marked with confusion and concern. Piper Chase Brooks, Mom called sharply. Get back inside. Now. You're making a spectacle of yourself. No, Mom, Piper said, eyes still on me. I'm talking to my sister. Mom reached us, stepping between us like a wall. There's nothing left to talk about, she said coldly. Skylar's made her position very clear with that little performance inside. After everything we've done for her. I couldn't stop the short laugh that escaped. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Besides criticize me? Undermine me? Exclude me at every turn? I raised you, she snapped. Fed you. Clothed you. Gave you a roof over your head. You did the bare minimum a parent is legally obligated to do, I replied. But the one thing I actually needed? Love without conditions? That was reserved for Piper. Don't drag me into this, Piper interjected, her voice unsteady. You dragged yourself into it, I said, When you used me for my skills, then pretended I didn't exist. I wasn't attending, I said quietly. Ethan stepped forward, brows knit. Is that true, Piper? He asked, his voice low but firm. Did you deliberately exclude Skylar? Piper hesitated, caught between her husband's quiet disappointment and Mom's glaring expectation of loyalty. It's complicated, she hedged. It's really not, I said, stepping in. Family disagreements happen. But what you and Mom did went far beyond that. You erased me. You erased me from the family narrative because it was more convenient than acknowledging my existence while still benefiting from my work. We didn't, Piper began. You told Ethan's parents I had prior commitments. I cut in. You told them I preferred staying behind the camera. You called me the photographer, not your sister. And Mom just toasted you as her only child. None of that was an oversight. Those were choices. Ethan's mother had joined the growing circle now, concern lining her face. Is that true, Piper? She asked gently, echoing her son's question. We were told Skylar chose not to come, that she wasn't interested. Piper looked trapped, the cracks beginning to show. Mom stepped forward, trying to seize control of the narrative. This is a family matter, she said sharply. It does concern me, Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. If my wife and mother-in-law are capable of this kind of cruelty toward family, it concerns me a great deal. More guests had gathered now, lingering nearby, watching, listening. This wasn't what I wanted. I hadn't come to ruin Piper's wedding. I just wanted the truth to exist in the open. This isn't the time or place, I said finally, my voice low. I've said what I needed to say. Piper, congratulations. I hope your marriage brings you joy. I turned to leave, but Piper's voice stopped me. So that's it, she called. You drop this bomb and just walk away? I turned one last time. What would you have me do? I asked. Beg for a seat at your table? Apologize for wanting basic respect? Keep pretending what you and Mom did wasn't hurtful. I shook my head, a sadness deepening my tone. I'm done fighting for scraps of acknowledgement from people who should have loved me without conditions. You're being melodramatic, Mom snapped, dismissive as ever. But then Ethan's father stepped forward. Vivian, he said, using her name with deliberate weight. From what I've just witnessed, Skylar is being remarkably composed under the circumstances. Mom bristled, lips tight. You don't know our family history. Maybe not, he said. But I know enough to see that what's happened here reflects poorly on your values, not hers. His words hung in the air, sharp and still. A validation I hadn't expected, but had needed more than I realized. Ethan looked at me then. Skylar, he said quietly, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. This isn't what family should be. Thank you, I said sincerely. Take care of each other. I walked toward my car, the murmur of conversation trailing behind me. Piper scrambling to explain, Mom growing defensive, Ethan's parents asking more questions than they were getting answers. The fallout would stretch long after I left. In the car, I exhaled deeply. My hands were steady on the wheel. The confrontation hadn't been for spectacle. It hadn't even been for closure. It was for truth. For too long, our family dysfunction had thrived in silence, in denial, in performance. Today, I refused to participate in the performance any longer. As I drove away from the Four Seasons, away from Piper's wedding, away from a family that had never really been mine, I felt something unexpected. Peace. I hadn't lost my family that day. I had simply accepted the truth of what it had always been. And in that acceptance, I found freedom. 1 year later, I sat in my expanded Brooklyn studio, reviewing photos from a weekend wedding shoot. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, warming the exposed brick and glinting off framed awards. My work now lined the walls, images featured in major publications. The business had grown. 2 associate photographers, a full-time studio manager. By every conventional metric, I was successful. But the real transformation had been internal. Therapy had helped me understand the family dynamics that shaped my childhood. The emotional neglect, the scapegoating, the golden child dynamic that had defined my relationship with Piper. I'd internalized it all, believing love was earned only through excellence. That worth was tied to utility. That being overlooked was normal. You're not responsible for other people's inability to love you properly, my therapist often reminded me. And slowly, I began to believe it. My chosen family in New York filled the void my birth family left behind. Zara, who stood by me through the wedding fallout, hosted monthly dinner parties where we celebrated each other without agenda. Jude, a fellow photographer, became both mentor and confidant. Luna, my yoga instructor turned friend, taught me to reconnect with my body after years of living mostly in my head. These relationships were different, reciprocal, safe, built on mutual care rather than obligation. 6 months after the wedding, I received an unexpected email from Ethan. The subject line read simply, "Checking in. Skylar. I hope you're well. Things have been complicated since the wedding. Piper and I are in counseling." That night opened up a lot of things that had been buried. I've encouraged her to take a hard look at the family patterns that led to your exclusion. She's resistant, but not closed off entirely. Her relationship with Vivian has become strained. Your mother still refuses any accountability. I don't know if reconciliation is possible, or even something you'd want. But I thought you deserved to know the truth is being acknowledged now, at least in part.
Ethan.
I sat with the email for a long time. There were no promises, no dramatic apologies, no miracles, but there was awareness. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. But I appreciated Ethan's message. His words mattered. Some seeds take longer to germinate than others. Take care,
Ethan.
I didn't feel pressure to respond right away. My healing no longer hinged on Piper's recognition or Mom's remorse. I had stopped tying my peace to their capacity for growth. 3 months later, another email arrived, this time from Piper. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was something. "I've been thinking about what you said at the wedding," she wrote. "About Mom making me the favorite after Dad left. I always saw it as closeness, not favoritism, but therapy is making me question a lot of things I thought I knew about our family. I'm not ready to talk yet. Maybe you're not either. I just wanted you to know, I'm thinking about these things." It wasn't resolution, but it was more introspection than I'd ever seen from her. I replied briefly, kindly, acknowledging the message without pushing for more. The door wasn't open wide, nor was it shut, just slightly ajar, enough to allow space for possibility. As for Mom, she clung to her narrative. Mutual acquaintances told me she still claimed I had ruined Piper's wedding out of jealousy, that I had always been difficult, just like her father. Her refusal to take any ownership over our family's fractures was disappointing, but no longer surprising. I had stopped expecting her to change. And strangely, that made her easier to accept from a safe distance. As I healed, my creative world blossomed. I expanded my work beyond weddings into documentary photography, capturing connection in all its forms, multi-generational reunions, community events, adoption ceremonies, chosen families. My talent for freezing genuine emotion in a single frame found new depth and purpose. One day, a gallery owner who had seen my portfolio invited me to create a solo exhibition titled Chosen Family. It featured portraits of people bound not by blood, but by love, respect, and mutual commitment. The show sparked conversations about the evolving definition of family. On opening night, I stood in a room filled with my work and people who truly saw me. Zara found me by the central piece, a triptych of 3 families, traditional, blended, and chosen. "Look at you," she said, linking her arm through mine. "Turning pain into beauty. That's alchemy, my friend." "It's healing," I corrected gently. "For me. And maybe for someone else who sees themselves in these images." "Have you heard from Piper lately?" "She sends occasional emails," I replied. "Small steps. She's expecting her first child this spring." Zara raised an eyebrow. "How do you feel about becoming an aunt?" I considered the question. Cautiously open. I won't force myself into her child's life. But if there's a genuine invitation, I won't turn away from it either. "Boundaries, not walls," Zara said softly. Growth looks good on you, Chase. Indeed, the greatest lesson I'd learned this past year was the difference between walls and boundaries. Walls are rigid, defensive. They keep everyone out. Boundaries are intentional. They keep you safe, while still leaving room for connection. I had learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I could forgive Piper and Mom for the love they didn't know how to give, without subjecting myself to further harm. I had learned that acknowledging their pain didn't mean excusing their behavior, and that my worth was never dependent on their ability to see it. True belonging, I'd come to realize, doesn't come from earning approval or meeting conditions. It comes from being seen and accepted for who you truly are. I had found that in my chosen family. Now, as I write this, I'm packing for a trip to Boston. Piper invited me to meet my niece, Aria. It's not a full reconciliation. We'll never have the sisterly closeness I once longed for. But maybe, just maybe, we can build something new. Something honest. Something based on who we are now, not who we were forced to be. The road from exclusion to belonging isn't a straight line. There are still moments when old wounds ache, when I catch myself reaching for validation in places that will never offer it. But those moments grow fewer, softer, easier to navigate. And in their place, real connection, steady self-worth, a life that feels fully mine. If you recognize any piece of yourself in my story, let me leave you with this. Your worth isn't measured by those who failed to see it. The most powerful thing you can do is stop fighting to belong where you were never meant to fit, and start building spaces where you're accepted without condition or compromise. Have you ever had to set boundaries with your family? What helped you navigate that journey? Share your story below, and if this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more reflections on healing, growth, and the quiet strength it takes to come home to yourself. Thank you for witnessing mine. Sometimes, being truly seen is the beginning of everything.